Let me tell you something strange about the people who seem like they don't feel anything. The ones who shrug instead of answer. Who say, "I'm fine," so fast it sounds automatic. Who joke when things get serious. Who change the subject the second the conversation gets too close to something real. You ask them what's wrong, and they say, "Nothing, it's whatever." You ask how they feel, and they reply, "I don't know, it's not a big deal." You can sense something underneath, but every time you try to get close to it, the door quietly shuts. On the outside, they look calm, untouched, in control. On the inside, it's rarely quiet. This is the psychology of people who don't share their feelings. Because here's the truth: not sharing is almost never the same as not having. People who don't talk about their emotions are often the ones who feel things the deepest. They just learned somewhere along the way that feeling out loud is dangerous. Maybe not physically dangerous, but emotionally, socially, personally. You don't become the quiet one with your feelings by accident. You become that way because at some point, being open stopped feeling safe. For some, it started in childhood. They cried and someone rolled their eyes. They were scared and someone told them to man up or stop being dramatic. They were hurt, and instead of comfort, they got mocked, ignored, or punished. So their nervous system learned a simple rule: feelings equals risk, silence equals safety. If every time you try to express something vulnerable, you get shut down, you adapt. You stop going to that emotional door. You start keeping everything in the hallway of your mind instead. And from the outside, it just looks like you're chill or unbothered or emotionally distant. But that's not the whole story. For many people who don't share their feelings, repression isn't a flaw. It's a survival strategy that worked once. The problem is, what protects you back then often suffocates you later. Some people who don't share their feelings grew up in chaotic environments, homes where anger exploded without warning, families where secrets were normal and honesty was dangerous, places where vulnerability could be used against you in the next argument. Maybe they watched someone else open up and get burned, a parent who cried and got belittled, a sibling who confessed something and was never allowed to forget it. The lesson sinks in quietly. If you don't give people ammo, they can't shoot you. So they stop giving anyone emotional ammo. They keep their fears, their hopes, their doubts, their pain quietly locked away. They joke instead of confess. They say it's not that deep about things that are actually tearing them apart. From the outside, they might look cold. Inside, they are on constant guard. There's also another layer to this: control. When you share your feelings, you give up some control. You can't control how people respond. You can't control if they'll understand. You can't control if they'll hold it gently or drop it carelessly. For people who already feel out of control on the inside, that's terrifying. So they control the one thing they can: access. Access to their inner world. Access to the real story. Access to what's actually going on with them. They become incredibly selective. Not because they don't care about anyone, but because they don't fully trust anyone. Not yet, not enough, not consistently, and sometimes not even themselves. That's another thing. Some people don't share because they genuinely don't know what they're feeling. Not because they're empty, because they've been ignoring their own emotions for so long that everything blurs together. Ask them, "How do you feel about this?" They freeze. They might say, "I don't know." And they're not lying. They literally haven't spent enough time in their own emotional world to label things clearly. They push emotions away so fast that they never fully look at them. Anger? It's nothing. I'm just tired. Sadness? Whatever. It is what it is. Fear? It's fine. I'll figure it out. Behind those phrases is a huge amount of unprocessed feeling. But because they're always moving forward, pushing through, staying busy, cracking jokes, or helping others, they rarely slow down long enough to sit with themselves. And sitting with yourself can be terrifying when you're not used to it. There's also a belief running underneath a lot of people who don't share their feelings. My emotions are a burden. Maybe they were told directly or indirectly, you're too sensitive. You're making this about you. We don't have time for this right now. You're overreacting. So now, when they feel hurt or scared or overwhelmed, their first thought isn't, who can I talk to? It's, I don't want to bother anyone. They decide the mature thing to do is to handle everything alone. I'll figure it out. I'll deal with it. It's not that serious. They label self-abandonment as strength, and the world often rewards them for it. People say things like, you're so strong, you never complain, I can always count on you. They get praised for being the stable one, the rock, the one who holds everything together. But that praise has a cost. It teaches them that their value is in being the one who doesn't need anything. So they keep their needs locked away. They keep their sadness quiet. They keep their anxiety behind a straight face. And when you ask how they're doing, they say, I'm good, just tired. Tired becomes the mask for everything. Another thing about people who don't share their feelings. Some of them honestly believe no one will understand. Maybe they've lived through things that are hard to put into words. Trauma, loss, confusion. Experiences that feel messy and contradictory. They might think, if I try to explain this, I'll sound crazy. No one else thinks like this. People will judge me if they know what's really in my head. So instead of risking being misunderstood, they choose silence. In their mind, silence is safer than failed connection, because failed connection hurts twice. First, you're hurting from what you're going through. Then you're hurting again because you tried to share it and ended up feeling more alone. If that happens enough times, eventually you stop trying. You become your own secret keeper. Then there's pride. Not ego in a shallow sense, but a deep pride in being self-reliant. Many people who don't share their feelings have built their whole identity around being the one who can handle things. They're the fixer, the helper, the responsible one, the I got it person. Admitting, actually, I'm not okay, feels like tearing that identity apart. They worry people will see them differently. They fear being pitied. They fear being treated as fragile or broken. So they keep their emotional struggles hidden, even when they're drowning. They'll say, I'm just tired, on the verge of burnout. They'll say, I'm good, with tears still drying that no one saw. It's not that they never want to share. Often, they do. They wish someone could see past the mask without them having to rip it off. They wish someone would stay patient long enough to make it feel safe. Because the truth is, most people who don't share their feelings are not proud of it. They're just afraid of the alternative. The alternative feels like chaos, loss of control, exposure, like standing under a spotlight completely unprepared. And then there's culture and gender. Some people grew up in cultures where emotional expression is seen as weakness, where holding everything in is praised as discipline, maturity, or strength. Boys are told, don't cry, be a man. Girls are told, don't make a scene, don't be dramatic. So they grow up learning that calm equals good and emotional equals wrong. They don't even realize they've internalized this. They just know that every time a feeling rises, there's this automatic voice in their head saying, shut it down, don't go there, keep it together. In some families, emotional conversations literally never happen. No one says, I'm proud of you. No one says, I'm scared. No one says, that hurt me. People just manage. They eat dinner, they go to work, they get through holidays. They live entire lives without ever really naming their inner world. If you grow up in that kind of environment, being emotionally open doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels unnatural. Now imagine that person in a romantic relationship. Their partner asks, "What's wrong?" They genuinely don't know how to answer. Not because nothing is wrong, but because they've never learned the language for what's going on inside. So they shut down, or they get defensive, or they say, "Why are you making a big deal out of this?" Because to them, emotions are a big deal. Too big. To the person on the other side, it looks like avoidance or indifference. But often it's fear and inexperience. They're emotionally undertrained, not emotionally empty. If you're close to someone who doesn't share their feelings, you've probably felt this. You can tell something is wrong, but when you ask, you hit a wall. A soft wall. Polite. Calm. "I'm fine." And if you push too hard, they shut down more. Or they get irritated. Or they turn it into a joke. It's easy to think, "They don't trust me." Or, "They don't care enough to open up." Sometimes that's true, but often it's less personal than it feels. They're not just avoiding you, they're avoiding themselves. And that's the hardest part. You can't force someone to have a relationship with their own emotions. You can invite, you can model, you can make it safe, but you can't crack the vault for them. There are different types of people who don't share their feelings. There's the stoic. I deal with things in my own way. Talking about it doesn't help. There's the ghost. They disappear when things get heavy, stop responding, vanish into work, hobbies, or sleep. There's the clown. They turn everything into humor. They make everyone else laugh so no one sees their pain. There's the caretaker. They will sit with you for hours, listening to your problems, giving advice, being there. But the second you ask them how they're doing, they say, "I'm okay, don't worry about me." Different masks, same root fear. If I spill what's inside, something will break. But here's the twist. Not sharing feelings doesn't actually make them disappear. Unspoken emotions don't evaporate. They leak. They leak out as sarcasm, as irritability for no reason, as sudden anger over something small, as withdrawal, as numbness, sometimes as physical symptoms, headaches, stomach aches, fatigue. The body starts speaking when the mouth won't. That's why someone who never complains might have random outbursts. They've been swallowing their feelings for so long that eventually something slips. Or they don't explode at all. They just shut down. They stop being fully present. They exist, but they're not really there. You feel like you're talking to a version of them that's running on low battery. That's the cost of constantly hiding what you feel. It keeps everyone around you comfortable, while slowly wearing you down from the inside. But if you're someone who doesn't share feelings, there's probably another fear underneath everything else. What if I start and I can't stop? A lot of people hold back because they're scared that if they open the door even a little, everything they've been holding in for years will come flooding out. They imagine themselves crying uncontrollably, breaking down, losing it. They think, if I let go, I won't be able to get myself back together. So they don't let go. They live with constant low-level tension instead of risking a big emotional wave. It feels safer to manage the discomfort they know than to risk the unknown of opening up. If you've spent years keeping things inside, sharing can feel like standing on the edge of a cliff. You don't trust the ground on the other side. Now, if you care about someone who doesn't share their feelings, you might be wondering, what do I do? How do I love someone who won't let me in? The answer is both simple and difficult. You don't break them open. You make openness feel less dangerous. That means you listen more than you pry. You ask small, gentle questions instead of interrogating. You accept small answers without demanding a sudden transformation. You show them, over time, that when they do say something real, you don't laugh at it, judge it, minimize it, use it against them later. Instead, you hold it. You say things like, "Thank you for telling me that. That makes sense. I'm here." You don't have to explain it perfectly. You normalize feelings instead of treating them like problems to be fixed instantly. You stop saying, "Just talk to me," as if it's easy, and start saying, "When you're ready, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." Slowly, consistency becomes safety. For the person who doesn't share feelings, the biggest bridge is this: learning that vulnerability doesn't always end in pain. They don't need 1,000 deep conversations to start believing that. Sometimes, they just need one experience where they were honest and the world didn't collapse, where someone heard them and stayed. If you're the one who never shares how you feel, here's something you might need to hear. You are not weak for having emotions. You are not a burden for having needs. You are not too much just because you feel deeply. You've simply been living in survival mode. Survival mode teaches you, don't trust anyone. Handle it alone. Stay strong or you'll get hurt. Those beliefs probably protected you at some point, but now they might be keeping you stuck. Ask yourself, who taught me that my feelings were dangerous or annoying? What happened the last time I really opened up? Am I still living like that moment is happening again and again, even though my life is different now? You don't have to spill everything all at once. You don't have to suddenly become an open book, but you can start with something small. Instead of "I'm fine," you can say, "I've had a tough day, but I'm managing." Instead of "It's nothing," you can say, "It's not easy to talk about, but it's affecting me." Those small sentences matter. They are tiny cracks in the wall, not enough to knock it down, but enough to let in a little light. You can choose who you practice this with. Not everyone deserves access to your deepest emotions. Not everyone is safe. Not everyone is respectful. But somewhere in your life, there might be one person who has proven they're steady. Someone who listens. Someone who doesn't make everything about themselves. Someone who doesn't weaponize your vulnerability. Practice with them. You don't have to share your whole story. You can just share one page. If it goes wrong, that doesn't mean you were wrong for trying. It just means that person wasn't the right audience. You can try again with someone else later. The point isn't to trust everyone. The point is to stop trusting no one. Because at some point, the wall that keeps everyone out starts to keep you in. Here's the paradox. People who don't share their feelings often want connection the most. They want to be understood without having to explain every detail. They want someone to notice the small changes in their voice or eyes and say, "Hey, what's going on?" They want to feel cared for without having to beg for it. But connection requires being seen. And being seen requires letting at least some of your inner world be visible. You don't have to share everything. You don't have to be emotionally naked with everyone you meet. But until you share something, you will always feel slightly separate. Like you're watching your own life from behind glass. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone if no one knows what's really happening inside you. And you deserve more than that. You deserve relationships where your emotions are not an inconvenience, but a welcome part of you. You deserve spaces where your honesty is met with care, not criticism. You deserve to feel held, not just needed. If you've spent years as the strong one, the quiet one, the one who never breaks, remember this: strength isn't never needing anyone. Strength is being able to say, "I'm not okay," and still believe that doesn't make you less. And if you love someone who doesn't share their feelings, remember, their silence isn't proof that nothing is wrong. It's proof that somewhere along the way, sharing stopped feeling safe. If you can be part of rebuilding that safety, do it gently. And if you are that person, maybe, just maybe, you're allowed to put some of the weight down. You don't have to carry it all in your chest, behind your smile, inside your jokes, alone at night when everyone thinks you're fine. You're allowed to say, "I'm tired of being okay," all the time. You're allowed to say, "This hurt me." You're allowed to say, "I don't know how to talk about this, but I want to try." You don't owe the world a performance of strength. You owe yourself a life where you don't have to hide everything you feel just to be loved.